New York time, Eastern Daylight Time, and very, very early morning in Mumbai, in India. It's, I think, not even 4 o'clock in the morning. And I start with apologies to Gaur Gopal Das ji, Swami Gaur Gopal Das ji. But I know as a monk, he's very, very spirited and steady, and getting up early in the morning is daily business for him. But even then, I think it's a bit too early. But I'm sorry, there were apologies first, and but we're so happy that we are going ahead with our scheduled event, and we're delighted to have one of the most well-known and very deep thinking, what should I say, gurus of this time. I think Gaur Gopal Das ji, what separates you from others is that you're so keen in sharing in your knowledge and using modern technology and social media to reach out with your message, which is so endearing and so convincing to a lot of people, and particularly the young generation. You have a huge fan following, and I think the way you've adapted to technology is a lesson for all of us. And I, representing the government or working in the government, we have learned a lot from people like you, and we are also now very, very active in the social media sphere. So, and this current tragedy or these difficult times is of coronavirus and COVID has made us realize the importance of these tools, and we're using it more and more. And since our lockdown in New York in the middle of March, we have gone ahead in full steam in using technology to reach out to common people, because our motto has been that if you stay at home, you're doing your bit by staying at home. We should do our bit by reaching you at home. Under that motto and socially distant but virtually connected, we are delighted that Gaur Gopal Das ji has decided to join us to speak. And I want to also thank Swami Prabhu Sundar Das ji and the Bhakti Center, and Shivendra ji, close friends of ours in the Consulate, who have helped us in bringing Gaur Gopal Das ji to a large audience. And this will, I'm very sure, become viral on the various platforms that it will be shared on. So, Gaur Gopal Das ji, I want to hand over to you. But before that, I would just request you that these are trying and testing times. You know, people are confused, people are losing their loved ones, people are losing their jobs, people are confined to their homes. It is a very challenging time for parents, for children. They're not going to school. Many people don't have work, others have work, but there's nowhere to go. They're stuck at home. It's a different kind of a world altogether, and it has changed so dramatically in the last few weeks, and we don't know how long it will last. So here I think it's a question of our spirit, our mind remaining in control. People are getting depressed, people are losing their hope, people are being frustrated. Yeah. So here messages from people like you have a lot of meaning, because you want to convey, and you are conveying that, you know, we have to hold our mind steady and we will overcome this this crisis or difficulty. So I would request you that when you talk, if you could address this issue, because I think there will be a lot of learning for all of us. With these words, I hand over to Gaur Gopal Das ji, one of the most celebrated motivational speakers. I read your book you gifted me last time you were here in the Yoga Day, International Yoga Day, and you will be surprised to know this year we have decided to celebrate it online. So you know, again, things have changed so dramatically. Okay. I read your book, your story of the wheels of the car, and I was quite impressed, and I just wanted to convey my thanks to you. And over to you, early morning in Mumbai, if I'm not wrong, you're in Mumbai, right?
Yes, it's 3:35 in the morning.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So my sincerest gratitude to Mr. Sandeep Chakravarti, the Consulate General of India. My gratitude to Sundar ji from the Bhakti Center, Mr. Shivendra Sofat as well, for organizing this and making this happen. And my sincerest gratitude to every single one who is joining us this for this live session here. Of course, for all of you, it's an evening, so I wish you all a very good evening. And for me, it's a morning. It's about 3:35 a.m. here in Mumbai, India. Everybody is still fast asleep. I am the one awake, trying to convey some ideas to all of you. But I think when we are talking about serving others, it always brings in an element of sacrifice. Uh, Mr. Chakraborty was mentioning that I'm used to getting up early, which is very true. But I'm definitely don't get up at 3:30. That's a little too early. I'm up usually between 4 and 4:30. It's not too much of a drastic change for me, but very, very grateful to be here with all of you for this live session. Now, often I begin my talks by asking people, how many of you loved mathematics in school? And I know that there are a couple of hands going up there. Then I also ask, how many of you absolutely hated mathematics in school? And I know there's lots of hands that are going up. And then I also ask, how many of you didn't care a damn? The maximum number of hands go up when I ask that question, you know. Of course, mathematics is an integral part of education, beginning from school until college and university. A teacher once asked a kid in school, said if A is equal to B and if B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. Can you give me a practical example for this? The guy said, well, it's simple. I love you. You love your daughter. So I don't have to complete the sentence. You know what I mean, right? So mathematics is such an integral part of education. And growing up, I studied mathematics as an engineer. You know, I studied electrical engineering. So obviously mathematics was just a part of life for me. And being an engineer, I usually tend to put things in equations as well. And I feel life is an equation as well. And there are so many different perspectives to look at life. One perspective being life is equal to constants plus variables. In this equation of life, there are two components, constants and variables. And when we are talking about the constants, we truly do not have much that we can do about the constants. Like we have pi. Pi is equal to 3.14. You cannot change the value of pi. And similarly, there are a lot of situations in life which we cannot change, which we cannot control, which are beyond the scope of our control, which are beyond the purview of our abilities to change. And which is precisely why the more we try to dwell on those constants, the more we try to make an attempt to change those constants, what we are doing is we are trying to hit our head against a wall. And guess what? The wall doesn't move. Our head hurts. Guys, a lot of times what's happening with us is we are trying to hit our head against changing those constants, but instead of the constants moving away because they're constants, what really happens is our head hurts, you know, unless someone is a compulsive alcoholic, of course. If someone's a compulsive alcoholic, then there's a different result altogether, you know. Like I was once just sitting and one guy came and asked me, Swamiji, what is more powerful? 15 liters of milk or 250 ml of vodka? I said, man, what a question you're asking, Swamiji. Plus, I have been a teetotaler all my life, so I don't know. He said, no, but guess. I said, well, I feel it's 10 liters of milk, which is more powerful than 250 ml of vodka. The guy said, you are absolutely wrong, Swamiji. I said, what do you mean I'm wrong? He said, well, I feel 250 ml of vodka is more powerful than 10 liters of milk. I said, how come? He said, very simple, sir. You drink 10 liters of milk. Then you go and kick a wall. You punch a wall. You hit your head against a wall. Will the wall move? I said, obviously not. He said, then you just drink 250 ml of vodka and don't hit, don't punch, don't kick. Just stand there and the wall will automatically start moving. I said, what a logic there, man. Even with that logic, I'm still a teetotaler, obviously. Now, the fact of the matter is this, ladies and gentlemen, that the more we try to hit our head against the constants, they're like hitting our head against a wall. And trust me, the constants won't change. Together, around the world, globally, we are all trying to put our efforts in dealing with this COVID pandemic. But as individuals, COVID is a constant for us at the moment. Lockdown is a constant for us at the moment. All we could do is maintain hygiene, maintain social distancing, wash our hands, stay safe, boost our immunity. These are things that we can do, but we cannot change the current situation as individuals. For people who are working on them, it's probably a variable. For us as individuals, and the impact it has had globally on all of our lives, it's become a constant. And we are not even in for everything yet. The post-COVID aftermath, the post-COVID economic slump, the post-COVID influence over our lives in terms of what our jobs will be, how school will look like, what would our lives look like, is in one sense at the moment a constant. And the more we hit our head against those constants, we are doing nothing but hitting our own heads, getting depressed, getting our minds affected with anxiety, insecurity, getting our minds affected by fear, by worry, and which is precisely why there is a great need to do a few things with these concepts. Number one, there is a great need to identify those constants. Very often, we do not identify those constants in our life. We need to look at and identify what are those constants that I can do absolutely nothing about. I am not going to be able to change them. After having identified what the constants are, number two, we need to accept those constants. We need to come to terms with those constants. Because when we come to terms with those constants, when we accept those constants, our energy does not go in fighting them and trying to change them. Our energy goes in trying to fight what we can change. Often half of our, or even more of our energy internally goes in fighting those things that we just cannot do anything about. Trust me, we need to reserve our precious energy. We need to reserve our precious mental space. We need to reserve our precious time to fight those things that are absolutely within our control, that are absolutely within our scope, that are absolutely within our reach, within our ability, within our capacity, you know. But what happens often is, if our mental energy and our time is just going and fighting those things that we can't change, when it comes to change things, we are only left with half the energy. So one of the things that I want to definitely emphasize on and tell all of you is identify those constants, accept those constants, because once you accept, once you come to terms with those things, you know there's no point spending my energy on those damned things that I absolutely can do nothing about. So identify, number one, what your constants are. Accept, number two, start coming to terms. Start accepting that these are things, here's a list of things that I can do nothing about on an individual level. And number three, do not dwell over them. Do not hover over them. Trust me, the tendency of the mind is to constantly hover over those things, constantly dwell on those things. And therefore, there's a great need that we don't constantly dwell and let our mind go to those things that we can do nothing about, you know. इसीलिए ना हिंदी में बहुत अच्छी चीज कही है किसी ने, चिता और चिंता इन दो शब्दों में अनुस्वर मात्र का अंतर है. If you look at the Hindi word chita and chinta, there's only a bindu or a dot. that makes it different in terms of how you write it. In terms of writing it, the word is exactly the same, except for the difference of that little dot on top. Chita doesn't have a dot on top. Chinta has that anuswar or the bindu or the dot on top. So in writing it, it's just a dot really. But in real life, man, a hell of a lot of difference there, trust me. जिंदगी में चिता और चिंता लिखने में बहुत छोटा सा डिफरेंस है, लेकिन रियल लाइफ और जिंदगी में ना बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस है, बिग डिफरेंस है, क्योंकि चिता एक बार जला के खत्म कर देती है, चिंता पल पल जलाकर खत्म करती रहती है. You know, if you're talking of a funeral pyre or chita, it burns you once, finishes you. If you're talking about worry or chinta, it keeps burning you, keeps nagging you, keeps sucking out your valuable peace, your valuable joy, your valuable hope, your valuable energy. Chinta, worry, is a sucker. You know, it sucks us, it saps us of the very vital energy that we have within us. And which is why these three things are very crucial when we are talking about constants. Number one, identify what they are. Number two, as quickly as is humanly possible for us, come to terms with them, accept them. And number three, make sure that we do not dwell too much, hover too much on those constants. Now, having said that, I don't want to make you hopeless, obviously. I'm not spending my early morning to make you hopeless. I've not gotten up this early to come online here and make you hopeless and say, okay, here are the constants we can do nothing about. Come identify them, come to terms with them, accept them, and don't hover them. What nonsense, junk. We all know it. But it's good to put it in perspective and so that we can apply it in life. But the beauty is the second part of the equation, guys, which is the variables. The constants are not in our control, but the variables are. So as much as we have identified the constants, there is a great need to identify the variables as well. Variables are those things that we can work on. Variables are those things in an equation that we can change. Variables are those things that are within our scope, within our reach, within our ability, within our capacity to redefine. And thus, it is imperative that in this time of crises, in this time of hopelessness, we need to move our attention from the constants to the variables. Like often I say, our height is a constant. You can't change your height, right? But our weight is a variable. You can definitely work on your weight, and especially during this lockdown and this pandemic where you have nothing to do, definitely we should be a little careful and wary of weight because we keep eating, right? Foodies as we are often. So yes, our height is a constant, but our weight is a variable. What people think about us is a constant. What we think about people is a variable. You can't go and change what people think about you in their minds, but you can definitely change what you think about them in your minds. You cannot change what people talk about you behind your back, how they gossip about you, but you can definitely change what you talk about them behind their back and change the quality of your conversation. So what you're doing is you're moving from constants to variables. So also during this pandemic, during this crisis, during this lockdown, during these turbulent times, during these difficult situations, it is crucial and important that we move from constants to variables, things that we can do something about. And when we do it, trust me, we move from hopelessness to hope. Because the more you focus on constants, you're hopeless. You can't anyways do any damn thing about it, except be hopeless. The more you focus on variables, you see a ray of hope that I can do something to change. If not the world situation, my situation. We move from frustration to confidence. We move from depression to a sense of joy. We start seeing a sense of positivity. We start seeing a ray of hope somewhere, a ray of light somewhere. And if there be anything that that should be integral to our lives at all times in our life, but especially now, it is hope. We need to keep hope. So there are three variables that I want to present to all of you. The first is be hopeful. Never ever lose hope. If there's something that will kill our lives, COVID may not kill us because we may not go out, we may not get infected, we may not be affected by COVID directly. But what will definitely kill us internally, and what will kill our enthusiasm, our energy to push ourselves with double the force to hustle, what will kill us is losing hope. किसी ने क्या खूब कहा है, बहुत अच्छी शायरी किसी ने कही थी. I remember there was a Bollywood song long back, 1965, 66, old song, sung by Mohammed Rafi. Beautiful song, beautiful song. बहुत अच्छी तरह से किसी ने कहा था ये. I can't remember, I think it's Talat Mahmood, I don't know who wrote the lyrics, but I definitely remember Mohammed Rafi singing it. He said, गम की अंधेरी रात में दिल को न बेकरार कर. गम की अंधेरी रात में दिल को न बेकरार कर. सुबह जरूर आएगी, सुबह का इंतजार कर. सुबह जरूर आएगी, सुबह का इंतजार कर. गम की अंधेरी रात में दिल को न बेकरार कर. सुबह जरूर आएगी, सुबह का इंतजार कर. देवियों, सज्जनों, दोस्तों, जब भी रात होती है तो हमेशा रात तो रहती नहीं है. सुबह जरूर आएगी और सुबह का इंतजार करना पड़ता है. Definitely, it's not going to be night all the time. If it's night, the sun will rise. For you guys, it's just about time to be night now. For me, about just in an hour's time, couple of hours time, 1 hour or so, the sun is going to be up. So yes, the sun will be up. And this is not some stupid sentimental hope. I'm not one of those who's going to just present to you some stupid, shitty, sentimental hope. No. That's not the point. We shouldn't be just some sentimental guys who are just, emotionally finding some hook inside to, okay, kuch nahi ho raha hai, nothing's happening, I need to be hopeful, I need to be hopeful, I need to be hopeful. Damn it. This kind of sentimental stuff doesn't work. It's good to just kind of convince yourself in the mind by being positive. Say, okay, no problem, nothing's going to happen, the COVID will go away, the night will go away, the sun will be up, it'll be morning, raat khatam ho jayegi, aur din aa jayega. We don't want to have just some emotional hooks and just some adjustment of thoughts. Positive attitude to a lot of people is simply some adjustment of thoughts. And who cares a damn? It's good. It's good to adjust your thoughts. Nothing wrong. But that's not what brings hope. Like a guy was walking on a street and a bird passed on his head. You know what I mean, right? It's passed on the head. And when the bird passed on the head, the guy said, "Oh, thank God, elephants don't fly." Now, trust me, just this change of thought that elephants don't fly is not going to change the stuff that is on his head, Elephants don't fly, will think, "Oh, thank God, elephants don't fly. The bird only passed this much. The elephant would have passed this much on my head." Good to adjust, good to think like that. But the stuff is still on the head to deal with, guys. Which is why our hope should not be sentiment-based hope. Our hope should be figures-based hope, statistics-based hope, numbers-based hope. And trust me, many of you are wondering what happens to my job, what happens to my work, what happens to my business if you're running a business. We're all kind of thinking like that, isn't it? But look at the stats. Don't just be hopeful based on some sentiment. Be hopeful based on numbers, figures, stats. We've gone through so many such issues earlier. I'm sorry to say that many have lost their lives and many are infected, and we must offer our prayers. Take a moment of silence to offer our sincere prayers. Our empathy, our sympathy, our support goes for all of those who are affected across the world. Simultaneously, we must also understand and know that there have been times when we have gone through crises like this. And you know something? We have bounced back as humanity, as one force across the world, as global citizens, not just Indians, as global citizens belonging to planet Earth. We have all bounced back when we have come together. This is the moment for solidarity. This is the moment for coming together as humanity. This is the moment for being there for each other. This is the moment for reaching out to people who are in need together. We will overcome this. We've gone through recessions before, haven't we? Don't we remember the 2008 recession? Don't we remember what had happened to Lehman Brothers? Don't we remember remember how we were all affected by a massive, massive recession? The entire global economy was in a massive turmoil. We bounced back. There have been swine flus. There have been the mad cow disease. There has been the Spanish flu in the past. So many pandemics have been there. And guess what? With great effort and solidarity, we have bounced back. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, friends, it is important for us to remember that our hope is not just some emotion or sentiment. It's good to have that. Nothing wrong. When a bird passes, nothing wrong to say that thank God elephants don't fly. Thank God I'm in a good position. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, it's important for us to realize and know as well that our hope should be based on data. Our hope should be based on numbers. Our hope should be based on figures. Our hope should be based on past statistics, stats, and we will see that we're not so hopeless. That's the first variable. Be hopeful. Do not give up hope. Do not succumb to hopelessness because of this one thing that will really kill your joy and your positivity. It's just being hopeless. And when will you be hopeless? When you constantly keep focusing on the constants. So move to variables. What can you do in this current life? What can you do in this current situation? And then after being hopeful, I think the second thing, which is very crucial and important, is also being grateful. There's a great need for us to move our attention from our curses to our blessings. There's many out there who are homeless. You're at least not homeless, There are many out there who do not have one square meal to eat. You have food to eat. There are many out there who are lonely and alone. You have most of you have someone around you, your family around you. And if you happen to be alone, at least you have people in your network with whom you can touch base, with whom you can do a FaceTime call, a WhatsApp call, a Zoom call, a Skype call, or just a regular call, audio call, with whom you can touch base. You have some relationships. Many out there are homeless. Many out there have no food to eat. Many out there have nobody to turn to, guys. And guess what? The most amazing aspect of life is that our minds just keep going to those negatives. Our minds just keep going to those curses. But if we can shift our mind and our attention to the blessings we have as well, our mind will be filled with positivity. Our mind will be filled with positive energy that uplifts our soul rather than dragging our soul and our minds down into pits of depravity and depression. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we consciously practice gratitude. It may not happen automatically to many of us. It's okay. It may not be an automatic part of us at the moment. It's okay. It's important that we start consciously shifting our mind to the variables, to what we can focus on, to what we are blessed with. And that means taking a couple of minutes every morning and taking a couple of minutes every evening, and if possible through the day, to jot things down that you're grateful for. It doesn't happen automatically for a lot of us, which is precisely why we will probably need to write things down. Write it down, jot it down, so that your attention comes to what you're blessed with. Your attention comes to things that will bring you a lot of positive energy and positivity internally. Guys, it's not the happy people who are grateful. It is the grateful people who are happy. And once again, I must emphasize and re-emphasize that being grateful and bringing our mind and our attention to positive things is not just about sentimentalism. Like hope should not be sentimental. Gratitude shouldn't be sentimental as well. Our gratitude should also be based on what is real. Of course, we should bring our attention to our blessings, but simultaneously, we should also work on ourselves. All of you who are professionals there, working, all of you who are business people there, running some businesses, I know all of you are going through tremendous anxiety. I know that all of you are going through tremendous pressure and stress. I know that all of you are going through a tremendous sense of insecurity. What's going to happen to me in the future, isn't it? I know that all of you are going through this. You know what my recommendation is? What's happening to you is a constant, and you can't do much about it at the moment. But let's start moving our attention to the variables. And what's the variable in this regard? I often give the analogy, the example of an Indian farmer. Most all of you joining us this evening for you, morning for me, are Indians. Probably you non-Indians are also joining us. But again, I mentioned we are humans, not Indians, non-Indians. But just because I'm talking about an analogy, I'm talking about India. So, you know, sometimes in India, when farmers are wanting to raise a crop, often you find that there's no rains. And when it doesn't rain, that not raining or the lack of rains is a constant. And the farmer can do nothing to change it. It's beyond the control and beyond the scope of the farmer. What can he or she do? Can do nothing. The rains are not in their control. But the farmer can still plow the land. He can still till the soil. He can still sow the seeds. And if he has done or she has done their best, if he or she have done what is in their control, the variable, then whenever it does rain, the farmer is future ready. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, it is very crucial and important that during this time you make yourself future ready. It is important that you know that what the lockdown is going to do, what this pandemic is going to do, you don't know what's going to happen. But you can work on yourself, hone your skills, work on your skills, do what you can do to be future ready. So whenever this comes out, the damage that happens to you will be less. I'm not saying damage won't happen. I'm not saying you will be completely okay. I'm not saying that. But I know one thing, that you'll minimize the damage for yourself if you prepare for what's going to come in the future. In the Indian Army, they say, if you sweat in peace, you bleed less in war. Right now, I'm not saying it's peacetime, but you do have the time to work on yourself. So if you sweat now, you'll bleed less in war. In the post-pandemic times, there'll be less damage to your personal life. Which is why, yes, be grateful, but be grateful while you're working on yourself. If you're worried what's going to happen to your job, your work, your business, if option A is going to go out of your hands, prepare for option B. See what else could you do if this is gone. And if you cannot get that B, prepare for option C. And if you're not even going to be able to get that C, remember one thing, there are 23 more letters in the alphabet. Ladies and gentlemen, don't lose hope, be grateful, and work on yourself to make yourself future ready for the post-pandemic effects. So be hopeful is the first variable, be grateful is the second variable, third variable is be soulful, be mindful. When I say be soulful, be mindful, I mean a spiritual practice. More than any time else in the world, more than any other time in the history of this world, we find a great need, a dire need for a spiritual practice at this point of time. We need to make a spiritual connection. We need to be soulfully connected, whether it is meditation, whether it is chanting, whether it's prayer, whether it is worship, whether it is mindfulness, whatever it may be, ladies and gentlemen, find your spiritual connection and stay strongly connected spiritually. Because spirituality gives you the strength, the fortitude, the inner strength, the inner fortitude, the inner determination to be able to stand strong in the face of calamity, in a way that you can fight it, in a way that you will be less affected by it. And therefore, I think these three things are those that we can include in our life, those that we can consciously practice, those that we can focus on, and definitely together fight this pandemic. And trust me, in one sense, this pandemic has pressed the pause button. And in having pressed the pause button, we all know that it has given us some time to work on ourselves. Mother Nature, Mother Earth out there is in her pristine beauty. The water bodies around the world, planet, trees, different species, animals, birds are doing extremely well and are giving us a very loud and clear message that we don't need you. When you were coming and messing with us out there, look at what you did to us. And now that you're not there, we are doing well. Sir E.O. Wilson once said, if the entire human race was to be wiped off from planet Earth, nothing would be lost. The tigers, the dogs, the cats, the bats, the butterflies, the leopards, the monkeys, the polar bears, all would do extremely well. Trees would be clean, the leaves would be green, there would be flowers and fruits in abundance. Not a single water body would have any damned shit that we pass through them and we throw in them. The air would be crisp, probably crisper than our shirts when we iron them. Mother Nature is giving us a very loud and clear message. Environment, ecology is at its best today. As human beings, let us be a little more conscious when the pandemic ends. Let us be more conscious as a human race. We are blessed with the power of thought. We are blessed to be intelligent. Let us not mess with Mother Nature again. Be more conscious in our consumption and add value to the world. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in one sense, the pandemic is very negative, but it has pressed a pause button so that we can redefine our lives and relaunch ourselves with double the force, with positivity, hope, and being conscious to the needs of the world, to the needs of the environment, and to the needs of each other. So to summarize what I've said this evening for all of you, Number one, we heard how life is like an equation with two components to it, constants and variables. The second point that we heard is we should not simply focus on our constants, because focusing on our constants is like hitting our head against a wall. The constants don't change, our head hurts. So do three things: identify your constants, accept them, and do not dwell too much on them. The third point that we heard was we need to move our attention to the variables, things that are within our control, because that brings hope, that brings confidence, that brings positivity. And the fourth thing that we discussed this evening was the three ways in which we can be focused variables. Number one was to be hopeful, and not just some sentiment-based hope, but data-based hope that things have changed in the past and they will change also for us in the present, and we'll get into a good future. Number two, be grateful. And our gratitude should be bringing our attention to our blessings, but not just sentimentally again, while we keep ourselves future ready like the farmer does, and we do what we can do so that when we do bounce back, the damage will be less. And number three is being soulful, which is we connect to ourselves, we connect to a spiritual process, whatever that spiritual process is for you. And of course, we ended with our last point. The fifth point that I mentioned is that we definitely try and be a little more sensitive to the needs of each other, to the needs of the world, to the needs of animals, birds, the other species of life, trees, the environment, the ecology, Mother Earth, and we evolve more as a human race, not be a curse to the world, but be a blessing to the world. So I offer my sincere prayers for all of you. I also offer my support and my solidarity to all of you and to all those who are affected, either in a direct way, by many of them are affected out there in hospitals, but in an indirect way, many of us are affected. So my support and my prayers to all of you. And at the same time, my congratulations, my great respect goes to all those who have kept us going in this time, whether they are health workers, whether they are janitors, whether they are cleaners, whether they are aviation experts, whether they are people who are running grocery shops or whatever else. They are all different varieties of professionals who have given us all the assistance and help to keep our lives going during this moment of emergency and crisis. So my gratitude to them. With this, I wish you all the best, a great evening ahead. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Namaskar, Swamiji. I know it's time for your prayers, but before I let you go, I just thought, would you have time for a short question? Just 2 minutes?
Maybe one, yeah. Yes, sure.
Yeah. So you gave this beautiful equation of life: L is equal to C plus V, and you said we cannot do much about the C. And then you gave the V, which are the three. One is being hopeful, and then count your blessings or gratitude, and the third was soulfulness or spirituality. So there are three parts of this variable. Would you give any particular weightage to the three, or do you think all three are equally important, or if you're doing two and not one, does it really affect your happiness? Would you just, or do you think all are equally important?
I think the first is the most important, being hopeful. I do not think anything can be more important than being hopeful. But at the same time, I would also say that in one sense, they have an equal weightage because one feeds into the other, right? It's kind of, they're interlinked and they're inclusive. They're not exclusive points, because if you're spiritual, you will be hopeful. If you're spiritual, you will be grateful, correct? So I would say from that perspective, if you're spiritual, then the other two come in, right? And if you're grateful and hopeful, gratitude will obviously bring your attention to higher powers. How can you not acknowledge that you've been given something that others don't have? It's a gift. So that would bring in the spiritual element if you're grateful, right? So I think they're kind of interlinked and they're included. So rather than making them exclusive, they're inclusive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you, and perfect sense. And Thank you, Swamiji, for sparing your
Thank you very
valuable
much.
time early in the morning.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best and have a good
Thank
day.
you.
And thanks for your
Thank you.
message of hope from Mumbai to New York. I think we need this message of hope very, very much in this city. Thank you.
Thank you for having me over again. Thank you. Thank you.